Welcome to the official Lawyer Minds podcast. Lawyer Minds is an ever-growing ecosystem for all the resources modern lawyers need. As the official Lawyer Minds podcast, we'll discuss everything from the latest happenings on the website to industry news. Get ready. Here we go. It's time to dive into the minds of successful lawyers. Here are your hosts, Tad Thomas and Mike Campbell.
Mike, welcome back. Been a little while hiatus, right?
Yeah, we have had some exciting things, some trials. And
Oh yeah, see, I've been laying on the beach for like the last 2 months, so I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, how many days have you actually been home? Do you know? Is it on one hand? Can you count the number of days you've actually been home?
Yeah, ish. Yeah.
Ish,
I'm on the road more than I'm home. I'll put it that way. It's more than 50%.
And we had an outstanding convention in Phoenix.
It was awesome. It was one of my favorite ones. It was, 75 and sunny every day, and it's cold and rainy back in Kentucky. And so, yeah, it was a lot of fun. We had a great crowd. Our numbers were really good for the convention. The CLE was awesome. All the social events were really good. So, yeah, it was an excellent convention.
It seemed to me that it was almost like, I know we've had conventions since the pandemic has ended, or, the concerns about the pandemic have lessened, but it felt like this was the first one.
Yeah, agreed.
And it's back to normal. And it felt great. Like, I was recharged by the sun and the energy of the people there. Everybody was in a good mood. It was lively.
It really was, wasn't it? I don't know what it was, but everybody, like you said, was just in a good mood, glad to be back together. And, maybe it was the sun and the weather, and then you get the vibe from being in Phoenix at the same time as Waste Management Open and the Super Bowl too. There's just so much going on in town.
A lot going on.
Yeah.
We have someone on the podcast today that we've worked with, outstanding trial lawyer who's also heavily involved with AAJ.
That's actually how I met her and Jamal, was actually through mutual friends at AAJ, and we've sat down and brainstormed cases together. It was, nice for you to get to work with Laurie on this case. And it's always fun to work cases with good lawyers, right?
Absolutely. Especially whenever, this specific type of case, which when we first talked about it, I was a little hesitant because I thought, okay, yeah, this sounds really difficult. But my goodness, did she really work it up and do an outstanding job.
Yeah. Well, let's hear from Laurie about her FTCA med-mal case out there in Missouri. The Lawyer Minds podcast is brought to you by Gavel Video. Some companies do videography, but Gavel Video does high-quality cinematography to highlight your firm's successes. Also brought to you by Legal Insights, providing expert digital marketing for law firms. And finally, brought to you by iLitigate, trial presentation software for trial lawyers by trial lawyers. And now to our program. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So, we had your other half. I'm just going to say other half. So it's good to get the better lawyer in your family on the podcast. So welcome.
Well, I'm very, very, he's definitely my better half, and I'm happy to be his better half. We share the pants in the family.
Talk about a power couple. It's great to have you on.
Thank you.
So tell us, we've heard a little bit about your all's firm, but just tell us what your practice is primarily, and tell us about the firm and where you're at.
So we are National Trial Law in Austin. We are one of the oldest firms in Austin, the oldest personal injury firm for plaintiffs. I've been in practice for 51 years now. So we just celebrated our 50th anniversary last year. And my practice is mostly focused on Federal Tort Claims Act cases around the country. So we take cases coast to coast and all points in between. representing military families and veterans, or just citizens who have been injured by somebody who is a federal employee.
And when you say injured by a federal employee, could you talk more about that? Because it's really broad, right? I mean, we had a case that involved federal employees, but it was at a hospital.
Right. And most of our cases are medical malpractice cases that come out of either a military base hospital or a VA hospital. But you can also have these pop up in a federally funded clinic that looks just like any other clinic in a strip mall in any town in America. There's thousands and thousands of those. Or you could be injured by a federal employee driving a postal truck or driving a military vehicle and have a car accident. So it's a typical personal injury case, medical malpractice case, but the tortfeasor or the defendant is either somebody who's active duty military or employed by the federal government in some capacity. So when that happens, the Federal Tort Claims Act covers the case, and the United States ends up being your defendant instead of the individual that hurt you.
And so if you have a claim or you're reviewing a claim, how is the process different than, say, a state like Missouri or a Texas state medical malpractice claim?
Well, it's similar in that you're still looking for the same types of facts and evidence to prove your case, to prove negligence or prove damages. What's primarily different is there's an administrative claims process where you have to present a claim to the appropriate federal agency that's responsible for the tort within 2 years of the injury. And there's no tolling for minors. And you absolutely have to present that administrative claim correctly because it can handicap you later on once you file a lawsuit in federal court. For example, you have to put a total amount of damages on your Form 95. And whatever number you put on there is going to become your ceiling at trial, even if you discover later on the damages are more. So you need to make sure you give yourself plenty of room when you put that number on there. And if you don't put that number on there, the claim is facially invalid. So it's really important if you get one of these cases or find yourself in a situation where there's a federal employee involved, that you talk to somebody who's done it before, because there's lots of little trips and traps that can trip you up along the way.
And that's interesting because I know most people, including myself, tend to run from all these administrative hurdles. You're like, let's go. Full speed ahead. Let's go. Let's jump over them. And you had a case recently, a record-setting result, where you ran to it. I remember talking about it and thinking, this is wild, and you knocked it out of the park. Could you tell everyone a little bit about the case? And if you can, without, if you can't talk too much about it, that's fine. But could you talk as much as you can about the case and the result and everything?
Sure, absolutely. And I appreciate your firm for being my local counsel in this case. It was a Missouri case, and I can talk all about it because the good thing about suing the government is everything about it is public. The settlements are public. Everything along the way is public. So, and that's one of the things that actually helped me in the case. So I represented a veteran, Matthew Rossignol, who was treated at the Harry Truman VA in Missouri. And he was a young man at the time. He was a veteran, but he'd been to several war theaters, and he was now a veteran living out in rural Missouri. And he was going in just for annual checkups. And he'd had a few minor injuries while he was serving overseas, and he had some back pain. So he was given a prescription for naproxen, which is an NSAID, a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug, just to deal with his pain management. The problem was the VA was giving him just kind of an unlimited supply of this drug, naproxen. And he had 3 years of nonstop naproxen. And when you shouldn't take it that long, you really shouldn't take it more than a month or two. And when you take it that long, it can cause serious damage to your kidneys. He didn't know he was having any kind of damage to his kidneys. He didn't know what was going on with them. He just started feeling worse and worse over the years. And this happened over a 5-year period. And at the same time he was going in for his annual checkups and getting these refills for this drug, his kidney function was deteriorating and showing up on these lab values every year, but nobody was noticing it. And at one point, somebody did make a recommendation that he see a nephrologist, but nobody ever processed that. There was just a failure of communication and breakdown of the system. So he was never seen by a specialist. He just kept seeing a nurse practitioner year after year who just kept writing these sort of blank checks for this prescription that was killing him. And finally, when he was about 42, he just became so sick. He took himself to a civilian ER, and they admitted him and said, wow, you are in stage 4 kidney failure and you need to be on dialysis right now. And if you hadn't come in, you might have died. So he called us, he found us on the internet because he searched, how do you sue the VA? And that's how he found us. And once he hired us, we presented his administrative claim. We knew they had failed to diagnose and treat his kidney disease. That's what I thought the case was about. But once I hired my expert nephrologist, he looked at his records and said they gave him this kidney disease by giving him this prescription in excess. They basically overdosed him. So not only did they overdose him, give it to him, but they didn't treat him once he had it. And so now at the age of 42, he's facing a lifetime of kidney transplants and just endless medical care for the rest of his life. So first thing I did was just do a verdict search on failure to diagnose and treat kidney disease. And I came across another FTCA case that one of our colleagues, Rick Freed, did in Hawaii. And he had a similar situation, similar age client, different cause, different set of circumstances, but same outcome. And he had to try that case, and he ended up getting a $25 million verdict. And I thought, well, okay, now we're talking. This is what you want to find out when you're doing verdict research. Well, the good thing about FTCA cases, if they go to trial, is you can get on Pacer and go download the plaintiff's findings of facts, conclusions of law, in detail, what was presented at trial. And so that's what I did. I went and I figured out who his experts were. I'm like, they must have been pretty good if he got 25 million. So I made a note of who all of his experts were. Thankfully, they were all still practicing. I think his verdict, his judgment was sometime in 2018. So it's pretty recent. And basically, I used the time. So when you file the administrative claim, you have to give the VA or the government 6 months before you file suit to try to resolve the case administratively. And I knew there was no way they were going to resolve it in this dollar amount administratively. They would refuse to do that. You have to file suit, but you can use that time just to prep and hire all your experts, get all your ducks in a row while they're sitting over there doing nothing because they don't even know this is really coming. They have your claim, but the U.S. attorney who's going to be handling it later doesn't know anything about this case yet. So I used that 6 months to get my experts lined up. I used Rick Freed's finding of fact to write my own expert reports and do my own literature, dump from what they used. Didn't have to reinvent the wheel. And, I did have to do some additional research on overdosing naproxen, but there's like literally thousands and thousands of articles. That's how dumb of a mistake it is. Everybody in the medical community knows you're not supposed to do this. So anyway, we put it all together. And fortunately, and this makes all the difference in the world, I had a really competent U.S. attorney on the other side. That doesn't always happen. No offense to U.S. attorneys. This one was exceptionally bright. And I talked to him early on and I told him, listen, this is going to be a high dollar case. We're never going to resolve this for less than 8 figures. You need to get DOJ involved early on, because the best thing about suing the government is there's no insurance limits. The state law, if there's caps on damages, they apply. So there's a pain and suffering cap on non-economic cap on damages in Missouri that does apply. But you get your medicals, you get your lost earnings. So to get something over $1 million, every U.S. attorney has a local authority of $1 million, but to get beyond $1 million, they have to get someone from torts branch in DC to approve it and sign off on it. And that is a whole process that nobody likes to do. And your U.S. attorney really becomes your advocate for your client behind the scenes. And so they have to kind of like you, and they have to like your clients, and they have to think they're going to lose badly to then go to bat against these people at DOJ that do not want to write these checks. So fortunately, I had a guy on the other side who was totally willing to fight for this case and understood early on that they were going to lose. So he got them involved early. We had an excellent mediator, Jay Doherty, in Missouri, and put together a good mediation statement, written statement for him so he would fully understand the case. And we did a mediation in October, and we started out really far apart. I mean, we were asking for in excess of $20 million on the case because that's what we would have asked for at trial. And we kind of, the midpoint all day was kind of $12 million. And they were never going to come to 12 million. And so we started playing around with what would periodic payments look like in this case, because initially the government, DOJ always wants to force you into a reversionary trust if they can, which is usually pretty bad for your client because it's written very restrictively and it can limit how they spend their money. And so we were arguing over that versus a reversionary annuity, where in Missouri, we knew there's a state law we would have to face if we won a trial that future medical damages had to be put into a periodic payment scheme of some kind. But it doesn't have to be in a reversionary trust or any kind of restrictive trust. It just needs to be a periodic payment. So we were really digging in on, we just want an annuity, no strings attached. Like, we're not going to agree to restrictive language in a trust. And so we kind of got down to the end of the day, and they were dancing around 10 million and, 9 and 10 and saying, well, we'll give you 9 in a reversionary trust, or we'll give you 9 upfront cash, but we're not going to, if you want to go to 10, we have to put it in a reversionary trust. And we fought about that for a while. Finally, at the end of the day, we got them to agree to 10.5 million in a reversionary, with half of it in a reversionary annuity, no trust at all. And of course, that was subject to these muckety mucks and DOJ approving it. And so Jay Doherty said, okay, I'll call you tomorrow at 10:30 and let you know what they say. So I get an email before he calls me from the U.S. attorney saying, DOJ won't approve this. It's going to have to be, we'll do 9 million in cash, or we'll do 10 with a reversionary annuity. And we had a deposition scheduled for the very next, I think like the very next day. I was going to have to get on a plane and go depose somebody that they wanted to depose, a treater in Missouri. And up to that point, we had not spent very much on depositions or had to travel at all. And I was so pissed off that they were backing off this deal. I said, you know what? No, it's 10.5 with a reversionary annuity. And if I have to get on that plane tomorrow, it's 11 million. And that's it. And it's going to go up every month after that until we get to trial, because we had a trial date in March. And they thought I was just crazy. And Jay Doherty's like, are you sure you don't want it? It's a lot of money. Are you sure? Are you sure? And I said, I'm 100% sure. Because I know I'm going to, if I had to try this case, I would love it. I would win this case. I'd win twice as much. And it would take longer because, and everything's a risk. But I knew this one was as sure of a thing as you can get. So the very next day I get a call from Jay. Well, first of all, he told me I'm going to call you at a particular time, and he didn't. And I thought, no deal. Now I'm going to take this deposition. And I'm furious, right? So I'm driving to the airport, just mad as hell. And I get a call from Jay Doherty saying, okay, they caved. They'll do 10.5.
On your way to the airport.
On my way to the airport. And so sometimes you have to hold them to the fire a little bit. But they finally, we got the annuity and we got the 10.5. And with the annuity payments, that's going to mean millions and millions of dollars more to my client. I think he'll end up around, if he lives his lifespan, I think he'll end up somewhere in the 19 million range. So it was a great recovery for him, and we were really pleased.
So when you say reversionary, it reverts to whom? The
government. If he dies before his life expectancy, the annuity payments go to the government. And that's a new device we've only been using in the last year or two with them. Previously, it was either just like a structured settlement or a reversionary trust. And the trust would be just for medical, future medical, but it would be so restrictive, like down to how many hours of attendant care you can have, or it wouldn't cover home modifications usually, or vehicle modifications, or things that a lot of disabled people need. So we like the annuity because it gives them a reverter that's a carrot for them. But if your client lives their life expectancy, it takes care of them for life. And we always make sure that they get enough upfront cash as a lump sum as well, so they have that kind of running start to do whatever they need to do.
Mm-hmm.
So the amazing thing is this was record setting in the state of Missouri for a pre-suit or pre-trial FTCA case. It's amazing.
Thanks.
Am I correct? I am correct on this.
Yeah, it was record setting for a settlement pre-trial.
Yeah,
I think it was the highest in the state of Missouri, but it's one of the highest in the pre-trial in the history of the FTCA. I think it's in the top 10.
Wow.
They usually, to get that amount, they want you to go to trial, and then they want to blame the judge. They're always fine. They don't really care if they have to pay the judgment. They don't want to set precedents against themselves. DOJ, they keep a ledger of, and that ledger, by the way, is publicly available to all of you on the Judgment Fund website. So it's good to do that kind of research and know, like I just tried a case in Arkansas in December, and we were looking to see, geez, do they ever answer? No, they don't. We knew we were going to trial because they haven't paid. And I don't know if that's because they just haven't had the right set of facts yet, or what, or the right judge, or what. But, you can see in each venue how much has been paid. And then you can sometimes figure out what the name of the case is or who the attorneys were, and go do some more digging like I did.
And in terms of, I just want to make sure I'm clear about something. You had talked about the substantive law. So the substantive law in Missouri or anywhere else would apply to an FTCA case in the medical negligence setting. Is that right?
That's right.
And then there's just separate procedural hurdles that you have to go through that are dictated by the federal government.
That's right. Yeah.
There's a lot to know. Again,
that's right.
Tend to run from these, and you're like, let's go. I got this, and let's go break some records.
So so the states that have like an affidavit of merit statute, but is that procedural where that doesn't apply, or you still have to do that as well?
It depends on the state. Some of them are considered procedural and some of them are considered substantive. So like Missouri has a certificate of merit, and we did do that just somewhat as a precaution. I mean, if you can do it, I kind of do the belt and suspenders approach of do it, but a lot of states will have their own requirement about just substantive expert reports. And then those usually get superseded by Rule 26 federal rule reports. So you really need to get a good local, which I did. And you need to make sure you're aware of any of those things before you file your lawsuit, because you don't want to get yourself in trouble by missing some local requirement.
Yeah. It's a really good looking local counsel too that you got. So
that helps.
Tad's, he's like narcissist. He got the mirror up.
I'm talking about you. I wasn't local. It was you.
Well, I appreciate it. I cannot take a compliment. Yeah, and I mean, the amazing thing is again, your firm. I mean, you guys have to be on like a DOJ list somewhere.
Hit list.
I think so.
Do not answer if called.
We're definitely on that list. Yeah. And, I have to give a shout out to, my husband is working the Sutherland Springs case. He just got one of the highest FTCA verdicts in a mass shooting case that I know he talked to you guys about. So they definitely know who we are. But I think that helps us. It helps our clients that they know we're not afraid to try cases. They know we know how to do them. And you have to pick winners from the get-go. So I think when you become a familiar face to them, they know it's because you know what you're doing.
Right.
It's sort of the reverse, right? Because if federal prosecutors only pick the cases they're going to win. So if usually if it's federally prosecuted, the crim defense lawyers know, it's probably plea bargain territory.
So. Yeah, well, it's similar to that in this way. I mean, we have no incentive to bring a case, especially an expensive case that's going to be time consuming that we don't think we can win. It's not in our interest, not in our client's interest. And of course, you never know. I mean, med mal cases everybody loses them. I mean, if you haven't lost one, you haven't tried one. But, we definitely lose our share of cases too, because, it's a tough business, but it does help, I think, if they know who you are and we have found that U.S. attorneys will call around to other jurisdictions and ask about us if they don't know us. The local ones do sometimes. And it's always good when that person you've dealt with can say something positive about you, and had a generally good experience with you, being honest and trustworthy, even if you're a tough competitor. That's the impression we want to leave everybody with.
Yeah. And I think we have a firm dicta now at the Thomas Law offices that if it involves the federal government, we call Laurie or we call
I hope so.
That's right.
As soon as the Rossignol thing came down, we are FTCA, everything, get it to the pros. And if someone wants to reach out to you and talk to you about an FTCA case, what is the best way to get in contact with you?
Well, the easiest way to find me is to find us on our website, which is nationaltriallaw.com, or you can call us. We're in Austin. It's 512-476-4346. And I'm usually at AAJ, where I'm the chair of the Federal Tort Military Liability section right now, and we'll be there in July in Philadelphia doing a seminar. So if you have one of these cases, have any questions about them, come by. We always love to workshop those and help anybody who's learning their way.
Well, Laurie, thanks so much for being on the podcast. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's fun.
What a great trial lawyer. They got such a good firm down there.
They really do. I mean, she's talking about trying a case in December, getting this resolved, ready to go though on the tarmac of the airplane to go take depots. That's what it takes.
I like the deadlines. I remember giving a deadline on a case. We were supposed to start trial on Monday. It was Friday. And I said, if I have to leave for lunch, if I'm sitting down at lunch, then, sorry, there's no settlement. Well, they called me as I was sitting down for lunch. And I said, well, I'm not quite in my chair yet. I haven't ordered, so I'll go ahead and give it to you.
It's amazing, the intestinal fortitude to just be like, you know what? No, if you don't give me this significant sum of money instead of this other significant sum of money, that's what it takes. I mean, that's what and you only get there by actually doing it and by trying it. And for me, setting deadlines is a scary thing because you draw a line in the sand.
You better actually stick to it too.
Yeah, because they'll know if you don't.
Right.
And that's it means a lot. Like I'm confident that DOJ knows Jamal and knows Laurie.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I agree. They're on a list somewhere. They're on a list.
But it's amazing because they're just such good people. They they're big Longhorn fans, which is kind of a negative in my book because I'm an old Big 12 guy. Like Texas, I wasn't gonna give up about that, but definitely they ruined that conference. And now they're coming to our SEC. But setting that aside, amazing people, got an amazing family, worked for an amazing firm, and just so happy to know them and to work with. What an incredible experience.
Well, it's been good to get back on another podcast. We've got some other good ones lined up, I think. So hopefully we'll roll out several in the next couple of months. But
we've got 4 months to our next convention. So we've got 5 months. So we've got.
Trust me, I know exactly how long we haven't talked.
Hey, man, I was talking to Devan, who, for those listening, he is the immediate past president. And I said, you got to love this convention, right? And he said, they still have me on my, got to be there. So don't speak too soon, brother.
Yeah, they got to find me first. So. All right, till next time, Mike.
See you, man.
That wraps another episode of the official Lawyer Minds podcast. Please consider subscribing to the show wherever you listen to podcasts. Explore the other content Lawyer Minds has to offer and engage with us on social media. Your feedback on the show and ideas for future shows is always welcomed. See you next time.